So remember when I said I was done with YouTube after I finished my study abroad vlogs? Yeah, I got FOMO. Anyway, we're back. I'm returning to my roots in Booktube. The last time I made a video like this was I think in March, so we got like a lot to catch up on. I was a little preoccupied with making my study abroad vlogs, which you should totally watch. This is a shameless plug. Please watch my study abroad vlogs. I worked really hard on them. So my reading goal for 2023 is 40 books, which is 10 more than last year, and I didn't even meet last year's goal, so I don't know why I made more for myself, but I did. At the time that I am filming this, I have read 21 books so far this year. So I'm basically halfway, but there's only 4 more months left in the year, so I gotta like shift into maximum overdrive right now. But again, I have an excuse. I was studying in another goddamn country for almost 6 months. I was busy. It was really just me and my Kindle against the world. So I'm gonna show you every single book that I have read so far in 2023. Think of it as like an extreme wrap-up. I'm also counting books as literally anything that I have read in its entirety because I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I read comic books and scripts, and if you don't think those count, sucks. It counts to me. If I can find it on Goodreads, it goes on the list. I talked about a lot of these in my previous book wrap-ups from when I actually kept up with it, which you should totally watch. Again, shameless plug. But those books I'm not going to talk about for that long. If you want to hear me go more in depth about them, go watch those videos. So in January, I read 4 books, and the first book that I read was actually a script. Look how pretty that is. It's the script for The Batman, which was one of my favorite movies of the past couple years, written by Matt Reeves and Peter Craig. And it slays. First off, you got Robert Pattinson on the cover. Automatic, at least 1 star there. You guys are quickly gonna find out how much of like a giant nerd I am through most of these books. I love superhero stuff. I don't know if you could tell by all the stuff behind me, but I love superhero stuff. And I love reading scripts, and I love movies. Where's that Keanu Reeves? I love movies.
I love watching them,
and I love
making them.
He's just like me. But this was so good. I loved being able to read like some deleted scenes that didn't make it into the movie, and it included a bunch of really cool like behind the scenes like set photos, and it also had a little conversation with Matt Reeves, a little interview with the director, which I thought was really cool because he's one of my favorite directors, and I just want to get into his brain and like crawl around in it. I love Batman. 5 stars. Keeping up with the superhero theme, the next book I read was Renegades by Marissa Meyer. I was a really big fan of her books in middle school. I read like Cinder and like all of those. So I was really excited to read this. I actually listened to an audiobook version instead of actually reading it because I listened to it while I was packing to go away for study abroad. So I was like, perfect. I already have it. Anyway, I love how the audiobook used 2 different narrators for the 2 different POVs that went back and forth. I thought that was so cool, and they both did an amazing job. Also, just superheroes. I love superheroes. I love, like, this isn't DC, this isn't Marvel, this is his own separate thing, and I love when people can make their own, like, superhero stuff. I don't know, I think it's cool. That sounds really dumb, but that's what I think. 4 stars. Next, I don't have a physical copy of it because it was something I read for a class, but it was Recitative by Toni Morrison. I took a Toni Morrison class while I was in Scotland, and this was the only book that I read in its entirety for that class because I am a bad student. But I actually did enjoy reading it. It was a little short story and gorgeous. Anything Toni Morrison writes, gorgeous. Love. We stan. I really do want to read more of her stuff in the future for like something that's not for a class. Like if a class tells me to read something, then I don't want to. If I read something on my own, then I'm gonna read it. But if a class makes me do it, it's not the same. So I'm gonna read more of her work on my own time. Sorry to my hot professor in Scotland. This man, I shouldn't get into that. Anyway, 5 stars. Toni Morrison, slay. Next, I also don't have a physical copy of it because I listened to an audiobook. It was Lapvana by, I want to say her name right, Otessa Moshfegh? I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. If not, I'm dumb. Her name is gorgeous, and I feel stupid for not being able to say it right. This book has been recommended to me on TikTok forever, so I was like, I might as well just give it a chance. And I was kind of disappointed, honestly. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. It was definitely very well written. Like, all of her books are just gorgeous. Like, her writing is, mwah, chef kiss, beautiful. But I was kind of bored at some points. It was very slow. And then the parts that I actually was interested in and wanted to hear more about were like sped by so fast. And I feel like it should have been the other way around. I might try to reread it in the future. Maybe I'll have a better experience with it if I have like the physical book in my hands, but we'll see. 3 stars. Okay, we're moving on to February. The first book I read was Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. I also listened to an audiobook of it because I did not have the physical copy with me while I was in Scotland. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. It's a win. Anyway, Nick Cutter needs to be on a watch list. I read The Deep last year and I loved it. So I was so excited to read another book by him. I didn't like it as much as I like The Deep. When this man writes gore, he writes it. He puts his whole Nick Cussy into it. Like, those parts lived up to my expectations. It was great. It was just everything else. Like, the plot, I was like, okay, cool, like a cult in the forest. What are we doing with that? And I did not care about a single character, which was kind of disappointing. But yeah, it's okay. It's alright, I guess. I have his other book, The Troop, in my TBR right now, and I really hope that'll be better than this one, because everyone says that's his best work, even though I am The Deep stan. Anyway, Nick Cutter, please go to therapy, and also 3 stars. Next, I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I love Grady Hendrix. I love this man. But sometimes he'll write like a female main character, and I wonder if he's ever met a woman in his entire life. Like, don't get me wrong, I love what this man writes. I love his books. I love most of his main characters. But every once in a while, I'm like, dude, please touch grass. I did enjoy this one though. I love the 80s vibes. I love the way the cover looks like a VHS. Like, that's sick. And it makes me really sad that the book got a really shitty movie adaptation. 4 stars. We're moving on to March, and I don't have a physical copy for this next one. First, I read The Laws of the Skies by Gregory Courtois, another name I don't know if I'm pronouncing right. It's French. I actually read this book while on a plane to go to Paris. So I was like, oh my god, it's translated from French. This is so fitting. And then I proceeded to have the most uncomfortable plane ride of my life reading this book. This was one of the most fucked up things I've ever read in my life. Like, Nick Cutter would blush. Just absolutely disgusting, vile, horrible things that had me hiding my Kindle screen from the people next to me. Just when you think things will be okay, more horrible things happen. And then the book just ends. And it kind of went hard. 3 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook version of World War Z while I was on a train from Paris to Belgium. So that was fun. Now, I've seen the movie, but the book blew my expectations out of the water. Like, oh my god. I love how they got different like voice actors to do all the different characters, so it felt like I was actually listening to like an interview, which, so cool. Amazing concept, amazing execution. Also, Mark Hamill is there. Slay. We love it. 4 stars. Next, I read The Last Flight by Julie Clark while I was on a plane to Rome. I know, I'm just so well-traveled. You can totally see more about my travels in my study abroad vlogs. What? Oh my god, shameless plug again. Anyway, this book was fine, I guess. There were 2 POVs, and there's only one of those POVs that I liked. The other character, I could not care less about her. Like, to the point where I would like be skimming like her chapters. I felt kind of bad, but I did not care about her at all. The other character, Love, she's a queen. We stan. But then I would like get to her and I was like, oh, alright. Still, it's fine. 3 stars. The last book that I read in March was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Again, Grady Hendrix. Man, I love you. Stop writing women. I'm gonna be so real. I hated the first maybe 100, 150 pages of that book. I was bored out of my mind. I almost DNF'd it, which is insane because I never DNF anything. But once it got to like the main climax, I could not put that shit down. The entire second act was amazing, and I loved it. But yeah, love the creepiness, love the family dynamics, love it, love all of it. Chef kiss, 4 stars. So those were all of the books that I talked about in previous videos. If you want to see me like talk more about them, ramble forever, you can watch my other videos. Once again, please watch my other videos. This is a shameless plug. In April, I read 3 comic books in one day. That's it. Me and my friend Meg went to Glasgow for the day and found a comic book shop, and I found volumes 2, 3, and 4 of Riddler Year 1 by Paul Dano. You guys already know I love the Batman movie, but I love Paul Dano even more. I love that man. Dude just gets the Riddler. He got into his mind and crawled around, and he was like, I can make a comic book, and I ate that shit up. He makes the backstory just so complex and interesting, and the art is gorgeous. Who did the art? Steven Subic. Slay. The art is so creepy and just unsettling, and it matches the vibe perfectly. It's amazing. In Paul Dano, we trust. 5 stars for all of them. In May, I didn't read anything. I was busy. In June, I made up for it by reading 3 books. I read and annotated a copy of Coraline by Neil Gaiman for my friend Emma. We have the same birthday, and for the past couple years, we've been taking copies of our favorite books, rereading them and annotating them, and then gifting them to each other, which I love doing. I think it's so fun. I love the movie Coraline, and I think the book is what really got me into horror when I was younger. Because this book is terrifying. How is this for children? Neil Gaiman, what were you thinking? I was 21 years old reading it, and I was like, this is scary, I'm scared. I feel like you all know what Coraline's about by now. If you haven't, you've been living under a rock. Watch the movie. Like, I don't know what to tell you. 4 stars. Now, I did the exact same thing for my friend Mia's birthday, and I read and annotated the book Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I got this one as like a little blind date with a book kind of thing from Barnes & Noble, and I was like, oh my god, this is perfect for Mia. She would love this. It's basically a YA kind of dystopian novel. It's set on an island of girls at a little all-girls school, and there's illness that people keep getting infected with, and they're like getting mutated, and they're getting not powers, but like shit's going down on this island with this sickness. And the main 3 girls are like fighting the challenges of the island and the people around them, and they're falling in love, and it's so good. It's so eerie. I love like the atmosphere of the book. Everything is so perfectly creepy when it needs to be, and that's my shit. You know that's my shit. It was just such a cool concept and had really solid body horror, which I love. If you're looking for a way to kind of get into like horror, thriller kind of stuff, I think this book is the way to go. But be warned, the ending pissed me off. I'm still mad about it. I literally took off an entire star because of how mad the ending made me. So yeah, 3 stars. Next, I read Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth, and oh my god, this book is something. I loved it. I thought it was great, don't get me wrong, but this is one of the weirdest things I've ever read. Basically, it's about a woman whose mother-in-law dies in her house, and shit starts going down. She's basically being haunted by her mother-in-law, and she's going insane, and her husband's acting really weird, and it's weird. It's weird. That's the best way I can describe it. It's weird. I also, look how gorgeous this cover is. I hate to judge a book by its cover, but come on, look at that. I love it. If you like unhinged, girl boss, unreliable narrators, this is the book for you. But anyway, however you think this book ends, you're wrong. You're simply wrong. You will never know how this fucking book ends. It is insane. There were times when I was reading the ending and I had to keep taking pauses and putting the book down and just contemplating life. Awesome. 4 stars. In July, I read 3 more books. First up is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Callan Bayron, right? Yes. I actually have 2 copies of this book because Bloomsbury Publishing sent me an ARC, and then I never read the ARC, and then they just sent me the final copy along with some popcorn and a keychain. And I was like, oh, now I kind of have to read it. They sent me free stuff. But I loved it. I thought it was so good. It's basically about a girl who works at this summer camp kind of thing where they recreate a famous horror movie that the camp is based off of, and shit goes down. People start dying and going missing, and there may or may not be magic and or a cult. It's crazy, it's fun, it's so funny, and there are so many little tongue-in-cheek kind of horror movie references and inside jokes, which I love as a fan of that stuff. The whole thing is just so clever, and it's a very easy, short read, and it's so enjoyable. 5 stars. Next up, I read Almond by Won Kyung-sun, which I really hope that I'm pronouncing right, because if not, I feel like I'm gonna look like an asshole. But so good! This is the book that Emma annotated for me for our birthday, and I was so excited to get it because she said this was one of her favorite books of all time, so I was like, perfect, give it to me. It's basically about the life of this boy, and he has a mental disorder where he basically feels no emotions. And he kind of makes friends with the kid who bullies him, who has a very bad home life, and the book follows his life and their friendship and relationship, and it's really sad at some points. Like, this book made me cry. I'm sitting on the beach crying while reading it. Like, I'll be reading a really intense scene, and then I'll just, like, look at one of Emma's annotations. She says get his ass twice on these 2 pages. So it kind of helped. Honestly, if it wasn't for Emma, I would not have read this book at all or even heard of it, so I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, 4 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer. Oh my god. I was gifted this book and its sequel by Bloomsbury a year ago, and they gave me merch. I got like a mug and like a map. That map right there is from this. And I got a bunch of really cute stuff, and I just never read the books. And I was like, oh, I need a new audiobook to listen to. Might as well just do this one. And oh my god. I'm entering my fantasy girly era because of this series. It's a fantasy novel set in a kingdom that is plagued by some deadly illness, and the story follows a healer named Tessa as she gets mixed up with royalty and saving the kingdom and finding a cure and a whole bunch of stuff, and oh my god, it's so good! The audiobook itself was also really good. It had another 2 separate narrators for the different POVs, which I eat up every time. And again, the love interest is hot, and there's a plot twist that I kind of saw coming, but it was cool anyway. And yeah, loved it. 4 stars. So that's everything I read in July. It is currently August, and I've already read a couple books, so I'm gonna squeeze them in here, including my current read. So yeah, I automatically finished the sequel. I read Defend the Dawn, I listened to the audiobook again, and oh my god, it's literally just a continuation of the first one, but like they're on a boat now. That's it. I don't know what it is with fantasy series, like the second one, they're just on a boat. I'm looking at you, Shadow and Bone. I'll be honest, I didn't love it as much as I loved the first one, but it was still very enjoyable. I literally listened to it in, I think, 3 days, and I need the third one now. It's not even out yet. I need it. Bloomsbury Publishing, if you're hearing me, if you're listening right now, please can I have it? Can you send me the arc or something? Anyway, 4 stars. Next, I read The First to Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is the book that Mia annotated for me, and I was so excited because last year for her birthday, I gave her the first book, They Both Die at the End, and I annotated that for her. So she got me the sequel, or the prequel rather, and I was so excited! It's basically about the invention of Deathcast, which is like the company that calls you on the day you're gonna die, like, hey, you're gonna die, and you're like, ah. And it's about the guy who gets the very first phone call saying he's gonna die, and he meets this other guy, and they have a nice little last day together, and it's so sad. I also really love reading Mia's annotations because, like, again, it'll be like a really serious scene, and then in the margin, it just says, "My brother in Christ, seek psychiatric help, OMG." Anyway, 3 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook of Red Queen, what's your name? By Victoria Aveyard. I have followed her on TikTok forever, and I was like, I've never read one of your books. Oh no. And I own this one, so I was like, might as well read it. Or listen to the audiobook, you know. It's a dystopian fantasy kind of thing about these 2 separate bloodlines, people with silver blood and people with red blood. People with silver blood are like, ooh, magic. And a girl with red blood gets mixed up with the silver bloods, and it turns out that, oh no, she has powers. She's not like other girls. You can tell this was written in like 2015. You can tell. The moment I heard like one of the first chapters, it was like I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I was like, oh god, here we go. Will I read the rest of the series? Probably not. I think I just need fantasy that was written in the last 5 years. 2 stars. I'm sorry, class. This brings me to my current read. I am reading Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, and I'm gonna be so real. I only started reading this because I'm watching Hannibal, and I found out that it's based off of books. So I went and got the first book. Do I know it's totally different from the show? Yes. Will I be imagining Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen the entire time I'm reading this? Also, yes. I'm literally only like 30 pages in because I started it this morning. But I have high hopes for it. I think it's going to be good because it's so well renowned, and I'm going to read the entire series. That's my goal for the rest of the year. I'm going to read the entire Hannibal Lecter series for my man. My man. And hopefully I can finish this one before August ends. So yeah, that is 22 books if you count my current read. My goal for the year is 40 books, and I have 4 months left. So will I make it? Probably not. Will I try? Sure. So yeah, that's all I got, but I'm really glad to be back on YouTube. I took the summer off, and I'm back, and I missed it here. I missed my little booktube thing that I got going on. Follow me. Can you tell I haven't done this in a while? I'm out of practice. God, alright, I'll see you next week.